Hello, hello, and welcome. As you might be able to tell, this is a different setup, right? I have packed my life in these two suitcases and I'm moving out in 3 days. Yeah, 3 days. Actually, well, by the time you see this, I'm already moved out probably. But that did not stop me from wanting to talk about a book I just finished. So, I just finished yesterday the book Damage. This is by Josephine Hart. And this is interesting. I want to talk about it because I don't necessarily think this was a great read, but it was an introspective read. Like it got me thinking, and I like it when books get me thinking a bit more deeply beyond, the surface level of the story. So let's chat about it, all right? So this book centers on a sociopath, I guess we should say. That's not really a spoiler. In the first chapter, he's detailing all the ways he thinks he's messed up, and he even debates about, like, was it nature versus nurture? He very much thinks it was his childhood upbringing and the fact that his father was very closed off. He is playing his role, he follows through with all of society's steps, and he manages to be relatively successful. He manages to become a doctor and live in a rather influential or affluent, upper middle class society lifestyle. He has 2 children, both of which are well off. Yeah, enter his obsession. He meets his son's fiancée. And this starts everything because he becomes obsessed, gripped, possessed, all of that, okay, with this woman, and her name is Anna. More on her later. I didn't really like her. Well, you're not really made to like her, but she wasn't, I think, as well written as she could have been. So, what did I enjoy about this book? I really liked the fact that it's centered on an unreliable narrator. I typically lean towards books like that. And I mean, I like stories about obsession, so this was a given. I like how his obsession gradually unfolded. It went from a very imaginative, sort of like erotic appropriation of this woman into like an actualized stalker, let's make the next move, like in a physical sense. I did like to see that progression, and yeah, it was just an interesting psychological study, I guess, but I would have liked to see a little bit more. Like, I wanted more, and I think that's a major shortcoming of this novel. Not in the sense that I wanted more messed up things to happen or more, I don't know, violent things to happen. It's not either of those things, to be honest, but when I say more, I'm referring to the fact that I wanted a little bit more depth from the narrator. Many of the characters, including the narrator, felt just like, I don't want to say one-dimensional, because clearly they had some facets to their personalities, but maybe it's the dialogue that's to blame. There is a lot of dialogue in this book, and unfortunately, it's so flat. Like, there's not a lot of spicy pizzazz of personalities coming through. Like, at some points I was reading the dialogue and I couldn't tell the difference between, the mom's voice, the son's voice, the sister's voice, even the grandfather's voice. Like, they all could have been the same person. Like, no one's dialogue or style sort of indicated who was speaking, and often Josephine Hart is like leaving off, like he said or she said. So you're kind of free flowing, and I really didn't like that. Yeah, most of these characters were pretty boring. Let's talk about Anna. She's the fiancée who the dad starts an affair with. She is characterized a bit as like a femme fatale, like I don't give a fuck energy, but somehow, I don't know, she felt too one-dimensional. She felt like she came straight out of a porno, which, I mean, I guess if we're talking about like imaginative appropriation, erotic obsession, it does make sense that our narrator, who's telling the story from a first-person perspective, so therefore we're seeing things from his lens, it does make sense that we see her that way. But, there's always moments where an author can sprinkle in something surprising about a character. Maybe she could have, I don't know, had a few more twists in her. I just felt her behavior was rather predictable. But yeah, look up the trigger warnings if you want to read this. I wasn't particularly fazed by it, but yeah, just heads up, there's some weird stuff in here. There are a couple of quotes that I enjoyed, and particularly quotes that sort of leaned into the themes. So one of them is, "It's so hideously easy, I thought." This is referring to him taking the actualized step to cheat on his wife and then lie about it, you know, like where he was, his whereabouts and stuff. And I love how he's thinking rather arrogantly, and like his ego's been boosted. He thinks, oh, that was so easy, like disgustingly easy. And I made a note here saying, you know, lust is easy because it lacks depth. Doing the right thing actually takes strength, you know, and our narrator, he doesn't see that. He thinks because it's easy, it gives him this sense of power, and therefore that means it's morally correct. But just because you feel a sense of power doesn't mean it's, you know, the right thing. So I like that Josephine Hart went like in that direction. And again, unreliable narration is so fun to play around with and see how, yeah, they're disillusioned by their own lustful pursuits. What else did I underline? I don't know. I didn't annotate this book as much as I've annotated other books. Oh, this was a good one. His wife is sort of honing in on the fact, maybe he's, I don't know, he's acting sus, right? And then he says, "To my shame, Ingrid's concern for me constantly triumphed over her desire to punish me." Oh, that line. The fact that she's so caring. She thinks something's off about him, but she's concerned about him. And the concern and the empathy she has for, you know, him struggling. She doesn't realize what he's struggling with is, you know, to hold in the shame and secret that he has. That really hit a mark. And I think it's to really show how women are so often meant to play the caregiver and take on a lot of the emotional turmoil that men don't know how to navigate. Wow, that was really impactful. Oh no, I can't read that. That's a big spoiler. Yeah, I would rate this like a solid 3, maybe 2.5 if I consider the fact that I didn't like the writing style. The only thing that really kept me going was wanting to know how much damage does this man incur on his life, his family, and his other, you know, relationships. I wanted to see all of that play out. So that was what was pushing me. I'm glad I read it. I could recommend it if you like stories about obsession. And yeah, there's a Netflix series that came out, and I did watch the first episode, and I was happy to realize that it very much aligned with the book. But I was talking with my family who's watched that already, and they were saying there are some differences between this and the book. So curious to see if it heightens some elements that I dislike, potentially Anna's characterization, and hopefully the son and his sister, I hope they have more personality in the show. So yeah, that is Damage. I will probably mention it again in my monthly wrap-up video, which I'll be filming soon. But yeah, by the time I film that, I will be in Germany, so I will move. Woo! I'm very excited. I'm more nervous at this point than excited because I still have to navigate, you know, cleaning out my apartment. But it's almost like done, like bare bones. It's back to what it was when I moved in a year ago. So this is kind of a crazy new adventure for me. Anyway, enough of that ramble. I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.